Twitter does not vote.
Sure, Twitter doesn't vote, but I also don't think we need to be afraid of expressing our opinions on Twitter. I had a problem.
No, we should. Exactly. That's what he's standing up for. We shouldn't be afraid. I am afraid. I got off Twitter because everything I wanted to say on Twitter, I couldn't say on Twitter.
Why?
Because it would just be it's such a minefield to get canceled. You know that 99%, I'm sure you know this, 99% of the people who worked at Twitter, half of them don't now, vote Democratic. Now, even if you're a Democrat, you shouldn't like that. That's not healthy for any company or any country.
Bill Maher has never been one to bite his tongue when it comes to controversy, but in a recent episode of Real Time, he turned the heat not on the usual targets, but on his own panel. In a no-holds-barred discussion, Maher pushed back hard against what he sees as the creeping extremism of woke ideology, challenging his guests on their most zealous takes. The conversation quickly veered into charged territory, touching on everything from the corrosive effects of cancel culture to the ongoing erosion of free speech. Maher didn't hesitate to call out how these cultural forces, often cloaked in the language of progress, can in fact stifle debate, silence dissent, and foster division rather than understanding. Central to the debate was the role of identity politics and how it has come to dominate certain segments of the left. Maher pointedly questioned whether the constant focus on race, gender, and other identity markers is alienating average Americans and undermining broader progressive goals. He argued that when every conversation is filtered through the lens of grievance and victimhood, it leaves little room for unity or shared purpose. His guests, some eager to defend these frameworks, found themselves on the defensive as Maher dissected the unintended consequences of prioritizing ideology over pragmatism, particularly when it comes to winning elections and crafting policy that resonates with everyday voters. In a media landscape saturated with echo chambers and knee-jerk outrage, Maher's willingness to challenge his own side and demand accountability felt like a rare moment of clarity. This conversation didn't just stir controversy, it laid bare the cultural and political tensions shaping the current era. And whether you agree with him or not, it's a debate worth paying attention to.
Not just a place where you can say whatever, it's your picture of your dog. He wants to have it like where you do your banking and like some of these other social apps.
And if he gets rid of the bots, that'll help.
And he's doing that, yes. Okay, Robert, Democratic strategist James Carville said Democrats would be better off looking harder at Mississippi than Florida, following the overwhelming GOP success in the state. I don't know whether that's sarcastic or I don't.
Well, the question
is Florida now out of reach for Democrats in 2024? Is he serious about Mississippi? It's more in reach than...
It's a challenge for the Democrats, I think, in the coming years, having spent a lot of time in Georgia, a lot of time in Mississippi, in Alabama. How are they going to win back the South? In some respects, the Clyburn argument that voting rights and redistricting needs to be put front and center has helped the Democrats make gains. I mean, to think that there are 2 Democratic senators from Georgia right now shows the Democrats have made some inroads. But when you go to Mississippi, when you go to Alabama, and you say, I'm a reporter, a lot of people just turn away. It's still Trump country there. And the Democrats have struggled with the working class. And that's why the Bernie Sanders campaign has often said you got to lead with the economy and class to win back working voters in places like Mississippi.
All right, let's talk about where the Democratic Party is heading. Because honestly, it's at a real crossroads right now. More and more, you're seeing key voter groups, especially working-class communities in the South, drifting away from the party. And a big reason, the heavy focus on identity politics. Political strategist James Carville's been sounding the alarm for years, saying, hey, if Democrats want to win back places like Mississippi, Alabama, or even solidify their wins in Georgia, they need to get back to basics. That means shifting the focus away from niche cultural debates and zeroing in on the economic issues, the bread and butter stuff, that actually impacts people's daily lives. Sure, Georgia's had some recent Democratic victories, but the party hasn't really capitalized on that momentum. And by letting cultural narratives dominate the conversation, they're leaving the door wide open for Republicans who come in with simple, clear messaging that hits home for Middle America. If the Democrats can figure out how to bridge that gap, they're going to keep losing ground in regions that are absolutely critical for building a national majority. And honestly, this isn't just a Southern issue. It's part of a much bigger cultural and political reckoning happening across the country. You've got people like Bill Maher calling out the excesses of woke culture, questioning whether all this ideological rigidity is doing more harm than good. Public sentiment is definitely shifting. More folks are pushing back, saying enough is enough. People want open dialogue, not constant policing of speech or purity tests. Platforms like Twitter are right in the middle of all this. With Elon Musk now steering the ship, there's this ongoing tension. How do you create a space where free speech thrives without it spiraling into chaos? Musk's approach is controversial, no doubt, but it highlights how these cultural divides are being amplified online and how much influence social media has over politics today.
I said to him, why in the world would you want to be running the day-to-day of Twitter? Like, do you really want to make a decision on whether Bill Maher or O'Connor's tweet should stay or not? I couldn't think of a worse possible job. Just appoint some board independently to make that decision.
Well, I think that's what he's doing.
Yeah, well,
no, look, I think he had a terrible week, and I'm a big fan of his. But retweeting the gay Pelosi story was stupid. And then advising people to vote Republican because we need divided government at a time when the Republicans were standing for ending democracy was stupid. But he's a genius. Sometimes geniuses are stupid. And I'm still on his team. I think it's great. I think it'd be so good for the Democrats to unshackle themselves from woke Twitter. This election just proved they do best when they have, the moderate guy who's not beholden to woke Twitter. Twitter does not vote.
Sure, Twitter doesn't vote, but I also don't think we need to be afraid of expressing our opinions on Twitter. I had a problem.
No, we should. Exactly. That's what he's standing up for. We shouldn't be afraid. I am afraid. I got off Twitter because everything I wanted to say on Twitter, I couldn't say on Twitter.
Why?
Because it would just be it's such a minefield to get canceled. You know that 99%, I'm sure you know this, 99% of the people who worked at Twitter, half of them don't now, vote Democratic. Now, even if you're a Democrat, you shouldn't like that. That's not healthy for any company or any country.
So let's talk about Bill Maher, because he just torched his own panel on Real Time. And honestly, it was kind of epic. Maher's not exactly new to controversy, but this time he took aim at something closer to home, the so-called woke ideology creeping through the left. And man, he did not hold back. Basically, Maher called out these extreme progressive takes on identity politics and censorship. The stuff you hear all the time on social media, where it feels like everyone's walking on eggshells, terrified of saying the wrong thing. His point? It's driving moderates away and shrinking the tent instead of growing it. And you could, feel it, his frustration. He's looking at this endless cycle where the loudest voices demand ideological purity, but meanwhile the average voter, the one who decides elections, is tuning out. Maher is saying, hey, maybe let's focus on actually winning people over, instead of just shouting each other down in an echo chamber. And of course, no conversation about free speech these days is complete without mentioning Twitter. Maher and the panel got into Elon Musk's takeover and how that's flipped the script on the platform. Remember, when Twitter used to feel like a minefield, say the wrong thing, and boom, you're cancelled. Maher's argument is that Twitter was run by folks who leaned left and that ideological bias kind of bled into how the platform was moderated. Now with Musk shaking things up, it's a little messier, yeah, but maybe a bit more open too. What's interesting is Maher isn't sitting here worshipping Musk, but he is pointing out that this shift forces everyone to ask the bigger question. Can we have real, messy, honest debates online without it turning into a cancellation free-for-all? And beyond Twitter, that tension spills into everything. Politics, media, culture. Who controls the conversation? Who decides what's okay to say?
I'm not for censoring people on Twitter. I think that if you're going to incite, which I don't think ever did, but if people are inciting violence,
that's different. Of course.
So clean that up.
Yes.
But allow a free exchange of ideas. I have no problem with it. I have no problem with whoever Elon Musk wants to support politically. I mean, it saddens me that he's not supporting reason and the Democrats, but that's his First Amendment right. My problem is that you don't want him making decisions over the media forum. He should have an independence.
I just like to tweet pictures of my dog on Twitter. I mean, things like
Exactly,
that.
yeah.
Well, I wonder, with all of this, especially in Silicon Valley, when did Democrats say that what happens at Twitter, what happens on Facebook, is like a utility? It needs to be regulated like a utility. Is that going to be part of the discussion in the coming years in any way? Where does the First Amendment end, if it ever ends? What is the story? Because a lot of people are arguing on Capitol Hill it should be like a telephone company.
But that's a terrible analogy because the telephone, this is a free speech issue. A utility is like gas and power and stuff like that.
But they're not television's regulated in a different way than social media.
Is that a utility television?
No.
We're talking about FCC stuff.
The weird thing about the Twitter thing is, Elon Musk has been a brilliant business person, right? And I just don't understand paying $44 billion. I think that a lot of that value is just going to evaporate. I don't see how he turns this into a winner.
Well, they said that about the electric car and reusable rockets. So I mean, the guy is not exactly
2 for 2.
He's not exactly without a track record, and he has plans to make Twitter into something much bigger than it is.
Let's get real about Elon Musk and Twitter, because what he's doing over there is basically one of the biggest gambles in tech history. I mean, the guy dropped $44 billion like it's pocket change, and now he's running Twitter with that classic Musk combo of bold moves and, let's be honest, a bit of chaos. Some people are calling him a genius, saying he's transforming Twitter into this open, unfiltered space where free speech actually means free speech. But others, they're side-eyeing his management style, calling it unpredictable, even reckless, especially when he starts pushing certain political views. And let's not forget, the financial risk here is massive. A lot of folks are wondering, can Twitter even stay afloat under his leadership, or is this whole thing just going to crash and burn? But here's the kicker. Musk isn't just thinking about profit margins. He's playing a bigger game. He wants Twitter to be more than just a social media app. He's talking about turning it into this all-in-one ecosystem. Think social networking, think payments, maybe even a digital town square where global debates happen in real time. But beyond all the tech and money talk, there's something even more interesting. Musk clearly gets how powerful Twitter is politically. He's not just running a company, he's steering a platform that shapes conversations, influences governments, and sets cultural trends. Whether Twitter becomes the next big thing or flames out, one thing's for sure, Musk's experiment is rewriting the playbook on how social media can shape the world. And hey, if you've made it this far, thank you for being part of the conversation. If you enjoyed the video and want more debates, insights, and thought-provoking discussions, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. Your support helps us keep bringing you content that challenges ideas and sparks meaningful dialogue. Don't forget to like, share, and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all this. Sports on all this. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next one.